Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Lower Makefield Farmland Preservation Incorporated board meeting. My name is Dennis Stedman. I'm the vice chair, and I'll be chairing this evening. We have two other board members on with us. Gentlemen, you want to just introduce yourself quickly?
Dan Bankowski, treasurer.
George Hines, secretary.
Very good, thank you. Let me pull up the agenda. I presume that's being displayed now for everyone?
Yes,
We
it
see
is.
it.
Okay, so I call the meeting to order. We don't have a packed agenda tonight, but you never know what might come up. But the first order of business is approval of the minutes from April 18th. George, our secretary, you want to take it away?
Sure. We've circulated the minutes. We have the minutes from the last meeting, and I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the meeting minutes from April 18th.
So
I'll
moved.
make that motion.
Okay, and do I have a second?
Sure, I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Very good.
Approved.
Very good. I should say that president of the board, Michael Blank, is unavailable this evening. And I have a note from Sean Carney, our other director, who is also unavailable. There's 5 directors. We have a quorum with a simple majority of 3. So we're good to go. This is what we have this evening. So next item, our treasurer's report, and turn it over to Dan Bankowski.
All right, Dennis, do you want to stop sharing your screen then?
I do.
Okay. So what we wanted to do was start with a performance review of our investments that we have. So our investments, our investment account is at Fidelity and managed by Fidelity. We can just as a reminder to you guys, every month I download all of our statements. They're all shared to our SharePoint site, so they're all saved down. Copies of every single check, every single invoice are together, all saved down there as well. This is a on-demand performance review or investment review that we can create from the Fidelity login. So this is run effective today. And I'm just going to kind of walk through a couple key points, remind everybody of a couple key points here as well of how our investments are structured. We'll go from there, and you guys jump in, any questions or any thoughts. The first handful of pages, and I'll send this to you guys. It'll be saved down to the SharePoint, but also I can email this to you guys as well. But we get, when we log in, we get these kind of like quarterly reviews of just kind of market, key takeaways, market backdrop, things like that. Every so often, this first couple pages of this, every so often, we will get a rebalancing notification as well. Basically, they don't rebalance very much, and when they do, it's relatively minor. But when certain assets are performing better than others, but we have a mandate for our asset allocation. Every so often, they have some leeway on how much they kind of go above or below certain percentage allocations, but then they will rebalance, sell some winners, buy some of the losers, etc. So you guys can have this, and you can read through that kind of the market backdrop information at your leisure. This is balance and performance summary, timeframe 1 year. So this is going back 1 year from yesterday. So this is a month by month table here. And I think if it works on your screen, I think you should see like the full year on the screen right now. Does
Yep.
that work on your side?
Yes.
Okay. So what I've done some things here highlighted in yellow. These yellow highlights are from me. So what I'm pointing out here is that the balance May right now versus May a year ago are almost the same.
That we can't see because it's behind all of our,
Let me see. Okay.
so if you just move it to the one side a little bit,
Let's see if that works.
or just read the top one from where we are.
I can't shift it left or right.
Okay.
1,091,000 today, 1,093,000 a year ago.
Okay.
And during that time period, it's gone up and down a little bit. Not so much up really, but mostly down over that time period and then back up. We have no deposits and withdrawals over that time period. So from an operating perspective, we've used only our cash management account, not this investment account. We maintain a separate account that has all of our cash management, that receives our rent, and that where we handle all of our bill pay. So we did not have any money that we had excess money to put in here and deposit, but also we didn't kind of go over our rental income, if you will, over that same time period. And we're able to rely on just rental income to cover our expenses. That is unlikely, I think, going to be true for the remainder of this year. I think as we approach the winter, and if we plan on doing the same thing that we did this past winter, where we had some kind of bigger projects lined up when we could get cheaper landscaping and tree removal rates, I think there's, in all likelihood, we're probably going to have to withdraw from this account a little bit to help cover those expenses. But all in all here, right, we're basically flat over this time period, and we'll see it again right here in a chart. So again, I'm not sure if you can see the far right, but this is basically the straight line here is at 1.093 million, I think. And that's the light blue. The dark blue is our performance over that time period, which basically went up slightly, down a bit, and then back up to where we were a year ago.
And Dan, question, are you going to compare that 1 year performance to a comparable benchmark?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Income over that time period. I just wanted to note here that it's not ratable. The gold colored line here would be your average monthly income. And you'll see, obviously, you have a couple big peaks, basically from cap gain distributions or dividends that we received from our mutual funds. But I'm just noting that it's not ratable, and we'll touch on that again in a moment. So these are our specific annualized returns. So let's focus on this money weighted rate of return. And then down here, Dennis, if you can see it then, and George, this is our indexed at a blend of 60% stocks. So this is basically taking this 60% blend here is our benchmark. This is taking basically the S&P 500 at 60% and the bond market at 40%, averaging those together and coming up with an index benchmark. And if you look at our 3-year return, 6.52% annualized versus the benchmark, 6.63. 1-year return, 0.48 versus the benchmark of 1.48.
And Dan, that return is after fees?
Our return up here, our return is, yes, after fees.
Thank you.
So I'm referencing here this money weighted return here specifically. And And so I think that kind of the key reason why you look at this 1 year and we have 0.48 versus the benchmark of 1.48 has to do with timing of dividends, right? We have that one kind of chunky dividend that came in, but if that gets invested at that point in time, and then immediately the market starts to go down, right? You kind of get dinged a little bit compared to the benchmark, which doesn't factor in, unequal sized income events over your investment timeline. It's really truly just looking at the investment performance. So I think that's the reason why we're below the benchmark if you look at just the 1 year performance right here. All right. This is just defining more specifically the money weighted rate of return versus time weighted rate of return. And really the money weighted rate of return is factoring in cash flows, money in, money out, deposits and withdrawals, versus the time weighted return does not factor that in. So, but Dennis, this is our benchmark reference then. This is our current asset allocation. This 60% stock, we are in this category here of growth with income at a 60% weighting in stocks and a 40% weighting in bonds. Like I said earlier, Fidelity will take that above and below those percentages by a relatively low amount, but generally keeps it within a few percent of 60-40.
So the only question I have, Dan, is when I look at the stock piece of it, which is about 56%, 19% of it is foreign stock.
Yeah.
How much of that
Yeah.
Do we, give direction to Fidelity, or do we just let them do what they think is right for that mix of the two different stock components?
They do what they use their kind of optimal asset allocation in blending it between domestic and foreign stocks. And we do not opine on that split.
Okay.
The way that Fidelity sort of operates here is they say we go through a number of questions. And I think we've revisited this less than a year ago, but we've gone through it and we've said, okay, we think there's a relatively low chance that we're going to take a meaningful distribution out of this portfolio. We are, generally risk adverse. We don't want too much risk. We think about our spend down. We would only expect to take whatever, don't recall what it is right now, but 1% in the morning, 1% of our portfolio any given year is our likely amount that we would withdraw from it, things like that. And when we answer all those questions, especially as it relates to the risk tolerance levels, then Fidelity comes back, knowing that we're a nonprofit, we're not paying tax, all those things. They come back with their recommendation and they say that we think that you should be 60% stocks, 40% bonds.
Okay. All right. Very good. Is that
And here the specific then funds that they have us in.
holdings? Yeah. Very good. George, other questions? I don't have
No,
any.
I'm good.
I appreciate this review.
I'm good.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. We're fortunate to have you and your expertise as our treasurer and your willingness to work. We appreciate that. Let's go to the next agenda item if we could. Let me put that back back up. There we go. And I realized too, I did a poor job of introducing the meeting for any visitors or public that's dialed in tonight. Farmland Preservation Inc. is a nonprofit organization that has one sole purpose, and that is to manage the preserved farmland properties that are in its name. It is a separate entity from Lower Makefield Township. And we have our own finances and our own board. The Board of Supervisors appoints the 5-member board, but our responsibilities are to manage and maintain about 340 acres that this entity owns, of which about 290 acres are farmland. So most of the farmland, I would say, that you see in Lower Makefield Township, much of it is owned by this board. And in addition to the fiduciary responsibilities, this board also goes out and trims limbs and pulls weeds and fixes fences on occasion, whatever needs to be done. Our responsibility is to keep this land in farming, in agriculture for perpetuity. So while we may run a surplus or a deficit in any one given year, we need reserves and require reserves to be sure that this farmland is maintained in what is no longer a farming community, but rather a suburban community. So it can be a bit of a challenge. So with that, we'll turn to any individual property issues or updates. Are there any trees down or neighbors' phone calls or anything else that that we need to address here tonight? And why don't I start with you, George?
Okay. From the last meeting, Dennis, there was one follow-up over on the Bridal Estates parcel of land behind 1201 Bridal Estates Drive.
Right.
And it had to do regarding the fence. And if I'm correct in the discussion, the fence itself is in very good shape, but there is one spot there that either used to be a gate there or they opened it up to address at the time the deer running through there. So when I walked the property the other day, the fence is in good shape. The buffer zone is in very good shape behind that house. What we have is we have a very well defined opening between where the fence stops on the neighbor's property, and it's about 3 foot to where we have the next post or pole in there where the fence starts again. So it's very clean. So from me looking at it, we have a couple options, I would think. One is we could just have the people who do our fence come out and close that gap, the 3 feet or so. We have poles in the positions where they could attach the fence to it and just close it up,
Okay.
just like we do on most of the other parts of our properties. Or I suppose, I'm not sure, other than allowing a free flow of deer through there, why we would have the gap anyway. I don't think it was for anybody in Bridal Estates to access the farmland. So
No, in fact, I have the history on that. And that our neighbor there had called us out. That section of fence that you described that's open. What had happened is it was a constant flow of deer, and that fence was always beat up and needing repair. It was in very bad condition because young fawns, small deer, would get trapped in it. A deer got stuck one time, and it became a big issue. And this is a couple of years ago now. I went out there and met with our neighbor, very, very nice gentleman. And we said, well, let's try this since the deer are making a highway out of that. And it seemed the fence it wasn't feasible to keep the fence there in any kind of condition because it was just getting run into all the time. I said, let's try opening it up and just make a path for them and stop trying to keep a fence where the deer keep running into it. Because we won't stop the deer. He called here more recently and said he doesn't think that's working. It's too much of a deer superhighway now. So we can put the fence back. We'll be back where we were. I think I think it's a question of I know you said you were having trouble reaching the neighbor. And I'll resend you that contact information, but maybe just have a conversation with him and see what the two of you can think of as an idea. But that's the history of it. And, it's a path that the deer have decided to take long before the fence was open. So I thought it was worth a try, but apparently my idea failed because he said it's worse now than it was before.
Yep, send me the information. I'll reach out to him again, but the buffer is in good shape. The area around the fences, the rest of the fences looks like it's holding up well.
Good.
So we don't really have any issues there. So we'll figure something out.
Okay. Other property reports from your area, George?
No, I know the farmers are out in the fields, prepping the fields for planting. I've seen
They
them
are.
out here on Stackhouse as well as Leadham's and Farmview. So they're around, but I don't have any issues that I'm aware of at this point.
Okay. Dan, any?
I have nothing.
Great. Okay. And I don't have any from my properties. Others, I would just say, now that we've hit this time of year, May 15th, the red tag deer season is over. There's a 6 week, I think it's 6 week pause for fawning. And I don't have anything new to report on that. We do have one additional issue, a issue that came up today under other business, but before we dig into that, Dan, George, do you have any other items that you wanted to bring up under other business?
One just quick item. Dennis, did you end up talking with the one township resident that was concerned about what farms were listed on our letter about then,
Yes.
saying preserve farmland and everything? Did you end up
Yes.
connecting with her?
I did. That's Sharon Kimmel. Sharon owns the farm. It's a little over 100 acres. That's on the corner of the 332 and Lindenhurst horse farm there. Beautiful farm. You can't go by that farm and not admire it. I did talk to Sharon for some time. It was simply some confusion. We had sent out a letter to those properties that neighbor the preserved farmland that this entity owns, our entity owns, and she had gotten a copy of that letter from someone else and was confused or thought that her property should have been cited as well, because her property has been enrolled in farmland preservation, for which we can only applaud her commitment there. And then when
I'm sorry, just to clarify, nothing to do with our farmland preservation.
Exactly. It's enrolled as a preserved farmland.
Yeah.
But it's not our property. She still owns that property. So she thought the letter was talking about all preserved farmland in Lower Makefield, and it is not. We were talking about the 11 parcels, 341 acres for which we're responsible. And that was fine. It was just a misunderstanding. It was interesting though to talk to her, because she has all of the same issues with neighbors that we have in terms of fences and things growing on fences and trees falling down, and occasionally a neighbor wanting to come over the fence and trespass. So we agreed that we should probably stay in touch just to compare notes as two entities involved in trying to preserve farmland in Lower Makefield. But that's been covered. Thank you, Dan, for bringing that up. Anything else?
Nope.
If nothing else, I have and I circulated this to the board about a month or so ago, and I resent it today. We have a proposal from the Lower Makefield Environmental Advisory Council to plant trees in our fields that run along Dolington Road, follow that curve where Dolington curves into Woodside Road. And I've talked to Jim Bray of that organization a few times about that. And I've sent you the detailed proposal. The vision I think that they have is, if you look at the row of sycamore trees that is along Woodside Road across from the golf course, with the grass underneath it, it would be that kind of setting along the sidewalk there, which is beautiful. And I'm a big fan of planting trees. I've been a member of the National Arbor Foundation for decades. However, I would express my concerns about planting trees there. And I guess I would, my summary statement would be, we're responsible to keep this, these fields, these few and precious fields we have in agriculture as farmland, hence our name. We'll be taking away, we'll be substituting some strip of farmland to plant trees and have a grassy area for the township to mow, which in my book is suburbia. It's beautiful, but that's a suburban space, shaded lane with a sidewalk and somebody cutting grass once a week. That's not farmland. And I don't think, in my opinion, that we need more suburban space. I think we need more farmland space, or we need to keep at least the farmland space that we have. So I find it really inconsistent with the mission of our board of preserving farmland to substitute any of it. I don't, that 10 yards, 15 yards, 20 yards around the road into suburban space instead of farm space. That's my summary statement. And I also know the farmers would not support that at all. It would be a real hassle for the farmers. They need to pull in giant equipment in wet days. They don't know exactly where they can pull in, where they can't. If you have a row of trees there, the trees get big, shades the fields, competes with nutrients and water. I grew up on a farm. The last thing my dad would have ever done is plant a tree in a field. Just that's not what farmers do. And I'm on this board, I have to err in the direction of the farmer as opposed to trees, which I love. That's my opinion. George, Dan, what do you think?
Generally, Dennis, I agree with you from having read through this and looking at where they were proposing to put the trees. About the only spot, because I do walk those pathways frequently, is if you were to look at that second picture which you presented, which was on page 7, there's an area that's labeled A. If I remember right, the way that area is from where the walking path is, there's actually a hill that goes up to the farm field, right? So to me, the only potential place possibly that you could possibly add some trees would be along the walkway at the base of that hill. And depending on the type of trees they were recommending, because I've never seen, all the years I've lived around here, I've never seen farm equipment in that area of the farm. On the other sides of it, I see it all the time. So I would agree with you, all those other places, Bs and Cs, there's no place for trees there. The only place that would make any sense whatsoever would be where they have it marked A on the map. And then it would be, I think you would have to be careful as to how many we allowed if we did in that area. Because it's really, you go up that bank and then you get to the farm field. Yeah, there you go. So
Yeah.
it's right where that A is. If you look down around where the grass is already cut down by the pathway, down in there, if that's where they were going to put the trees, they may not hinder the farm operation. But the other areas definitely would affect the farm operation.
Okay,
That's my 2 cents.
thank you, George. Dan?
Yeah, if we look at the 2 Bs and the 2 Cs,
Mhm.
yeah, for a number of reasons, I think this is a non-starter. First, I do think that there's a pipeline that runs along part of that road there,
Yes.
which would create obviously an issue. I think we're kind of almost in between those 2 Bs. It actually is a bit of a steep hill there as well, which would mean, if anything, then they're planning even closer into the field or even more into the field. But where both of the Cs and the Bs are there, I think it would be a significant amount of actual farmed tillable land that would then turn into grass. One, because they would have to actually plant these trees in what is already farm field, not a grass buffer area, what is today a grass buffer. And then we got to create that much more of a grass buffer into the field. And I don't think we have the ability to do that and modify leases that we have in place with farmers right now without getting their consent. And they already have expressed that they're not willing to go along with this. Now maybe there's other avenues we could explore there, but I think we're all on the same page here at the current moment. So, but basically, I don't even know how much real space you could even find really at the end of the day here. And like I said, I don't think we don't want to take away farmable, tillable land. George, you bring up a great point here about that little strip there, because I agree that I recall that too as being a bit more of a meaningful bank there, and the buffer might be a bit wider, and especially where the bank is, maybe there is a little bit of a spot there that they could put in a couple trees. Back to the pipeline issue though, we'd have to make sure, do we even have the ability to plant? Would it,
Yeah.
I think it'd only be for that idea though, if it doesn't actually take away any farmland. If they can find some area where they could squeeze some trees in, that could be interesting though. And
Yeah,
because of that bank, they're not going to be driving the equipment in and out right there.
Right.
So yeah, maybe that might be a worthwhile exploring that a little bit.
Yeah, I think exploring that area George, you're raising a good point. We can review that. We can go out and look at that. Also talk to the farmers. I know they have had issues in this field, as is obvious from this map, with drainage. You can see the easement, the grassy drainage area in the middle of the field there. It can get very wet, and I know when they're harvesting, the combine has to pull up alongside a giant tractor trailer truck to unload the grain. Ideally, if it's dry, the truck pulls into the field and meets the combine. If the truck can't get into the field because of wet conditions, then the truck has to park right along the edge of the road, and the combine has to come to it. If there were a row of trees there, that would not be possible. I mean, the combine is 15, 18 feet high, and I forget how wide, but so there's a lot of problems if to put a row of trees along a field, and it's why it's not done from an agricultural perspective. Let's look at let's explore that A area a bit and see if like I say, discuss it with the farmers and see if that could be done with minimal impact. I know it would not, if from your description, it should not impact where the equipment goes in and out. It is still taking 15 or 20 yards of productive farmland and putting it in grass and trees, which need maintenance. So I'm not necessarily saying planting trees in A is a good idea, but let's explore that a little further. But it sounds like we have pretty much consensus amongst the three of us, and based on my informal conversations with the other directors, I wouldn't expect to hear anything much different.
Dennis, I think the maintenance is definitely something that is out there as well. Down Woodside, maintaining those trees, while the township has historically, I think the township has cut that grass along the walking path. They haven't done as much maintenance on those trees. In addition, I don't think we've hired a professional, but very seldom. I think there was like a stump we had them grind out once, but we have done it ourselves, right? I know Mike and I went out there one time and drove down Woodside with my truck and trimmed a whole, 20 trees and threw everything in and hauled it away. And Dennis, I know you've been out there helping remove nails and staples from those trees before when people posted signs on those trees, right? This isn't I don't know if the EAC committee understands too that this isn't, turning this over to the township for the township to maintain these trees as well. It's on us and the farmers. So just to reference that too.
No, trees need maintenance. They're not, you don't plant them and ignore them. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Limbs fall and storms happen. And I mean, if it's in the woods, nobody cares and it falls down or looks however it looks, but you put it along a road and along a field, somebody's going to have to maintain it. I'm so not sure that's, I'm sure. Okay. All right. Good discussion. Let's, I wanted to air that out. I wanted to air that out tonight, given the timing of the events that are around this proposal. So thank you for that. At this point, being no other business, I would ask our moderator to see if there's any. I'm sorry.
Yeah, can Dennis can we just go on to clarify here then next steps on this proposal?
Yes.
So what do we want to do with respect to that A area? And then are you communicating? I'm sorry, but are you communicating then to EAC or what's the plan here?
Yes, I will go back to the committee with the view of this board meeting, and I would say, why don't we try before our next meeting in June, which I think would be the 11th, the second Tuesday in June. Let's make a point. I'll make a point to talk to the farmers. Let's go out there, look at that, and see if there's if that area labeled A is a potential exception to what we've said.
All right.
Does that would everyone agree?
Yeah,
with
that makes sense.
Okay.
Sorry, good. Dennis, I interrupted you. I think you were checking in on public comment.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you, though. It's we got lots of time. So to our moderator, any public comments or questions? at
There
this
is no
juncture?
public comment on the line.
No public comment. Very good. Okay, well, if nothing else, George, I'd ask you as secretary to wrap up any follow-up or action items. I just said the one with respect to Area A.
Right.
Are there others?
That's the only one I have, other than you resending me any contact information for 1201
Yes.
Bridal Estates.
Right. Okay, we'll do. And by the way, do either of you know, will our president, Mike Blank, be back? Will he be available at our June 11th meeting? I don't know.
I don't think so.
No. Okay.
I didn't think so either.
Okay. I wasn't sure what that timing was. Very good. Okay.
The only other item I had, Dennis, was I think you floated an email out there trying to get an executive session together.
Yes.
And
I
we
proposed
just-
a few dates in executive session to talk about perhaps the development of a new policy regarding neighbors dumping yard waste
Yes.
over our fences. Yes.
So the only follow-up I would have is for each of us to get back to you so we can pick a date.
Okay. All right. Let's do that. And like I say, I'm happy to do that in person. If Zoom is easier, so be it.
I'm
we can do
fine
it.
meeting in person. We just need to pick a date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. All right. If no other items, no public comments, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Is a second?
Second.
It seems unanimous. I think
Yes.
we're adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Appreciate all your help.